Okay, so like I said, just said, we're going to talk about two more forms, vertex form and factored form. Sometimes it's called intercept form, but most of the time it'll just be factored and intercept are the same thing. Okay, we looked at standard form. Standard form is what it is. That hasn't changed. But now, first thing is vertex form. Vertex form is one of the nicer forms. Why? Because it does a lot of the work for you. With standard form, we had to do some work to find axis of symmetry. We had to go -1 times b divided by 2 times a, right? We had to do that for axis of symmetry. We don't have to do that today. It's given to us. Vertex form says here is the axis of symmetry, here is the vertex. H and K. A still does the same thing. A is positive, arrows up. A is negative, arrows down. As A gets farther away from 0, it gets more narrow, more and more narrow, right? So if A were to get bigger and bigger and bigger, positive or negative, narrow. If it gets closer to 0, it widens. Okay? Here's the thing about vertex form. Here's the catch. The only catch with vertex form is H is a liar. So when we want to find H, a lot of times it'll present itself as a positive or negative, when in fact it's the opposite. Okay? So H is a liar, but K tells the truth. That only affects when we need to find H. We don't do anything to the equation, but when it says, what is H? We just got to remember that it's lying. It's not telling the truth. It's not being truthful. It's actually the opposite. Okay? Factored form or intercept form also has an A. So A's job is still the same. Okay? Phones away, phones away. We have a quiz next week and then a test after that. I'd hate to take away 10% off that test. So phones away. Okay. This one has also a P and a Q. What are P and Q? They're x-intercepts. They're x-intercepts. Okay. How do we find the axis of symmetry? It's going to be halfway in between those two places. Halfway in between. So how do you find halfway in between? You add two numbers and divide by 2. That's halfway. Okay. P and Q are also liars. Got a lot of liars today. P and Q, when we're trying to find what P and Q are, it's actually the opposite. Why are all these lying? Why is H lying, P lying, Q lying? We're going to find out about that next chapter. That's all we're going to talk about next chapter. Why are these guys lying? So just for right now, trust me, believe me, if you really want to know, next chapter, I'll answer those questions. Because today it just confused you more, and we're going to do a whole chapter where we answer those questions. Okay? So just for today. All right. Okay, so remember, A has 2 jobs. Arrows up, arrows down, also wide and skinny. How do I know if it's getting skinny? Where is that number? The farther away it is from 0, A is, it's going to be skinnier, skinnier, skinnier. The closer it is to 0, it's going to be wide. Okay? That's how you know. So A still does the same thing. The only thing that hasn't changed is A. So let's go to the back. Let's go to example number 1 now. On the quiz next week, I'm going to ask you to do these things. I'm going to say, give me the axis of symmetry, give me the vertex, give me the maximum or minimum, give me the y-intercept. I might have you graph, I might not have you graph, I'm not sure yet, but those are the things I'm going to have you do. So that's why we're doing it in the notes, okay? So the first thing is, which form is it? I'm not going to tell you which form it is on the quiz. I'm just going to say, here's an equation. You have to decide. Now there's ways to tell. This guy has 1 parentheses, 1 parentheses, 2 parentheses, right? And it has a squared outside the parentheses. Factored doesn't have that. Okay, so that's standard form doesn't have any parentheses, right? So there's kind of easy ways to tell which one is which. So now that we know it's vertex form, it's got an A, it's got an H, and it's got a K. So let's write those down first. Okay, what is A? -3. Good, -3. A is -3. H, remember H is a liar. So it's actually going to be +2. Now we don't change the equation. Leave the equation the way it is. Don't change it. But H is actually in disguise. It's actually +2. It looks like -2. It does. It looks like -2, but it lies. So that's why. K tells the truth. -4. Okay. All right. So now let's find these things. We got to do these 5 things. First thing is axis of symmetry. Well, since it's in vertex form says whatever H is your axis of symmetry. How nice is that? They told us. H is -2. Or sorry, +2. So that's our axis of symmetry. We don't have to do any work. It's given to us. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my green line. That's my green line, remember? That's my green line. Thanks. That's my green line that I'm going to draw. Okay, so let me go draw my green line at +2. The vertex is somewhere on that green line. Down here, in the middle, up here. I don't know where, but it's somewhere on that green line. So now I got to figure that out. Well, vertex form is even nicer because it says, hey, you don't have to find the vertex. The vertex is already given to you. We already know part of it. That's H. The other part is K. -4. You don't have to do any work to find the axis of symmetry or the vertex. That's why it's called vertex form. So I'm going to go down 4, make a dot. That's going to be my vertex. Also your maximum and minimum, because that's what they're asking next. Is that dot going to be a maximum or is it going to be a minimum? It's going to be a close maximum. How do we know it's going to be a maximum? There you go. A is negative. So it means it's going to be the top of the hill. So it's going to be a max at -4. Good. -4. Good. All right. Next thing is the y-intercept. Y-intercept always starts with 0, comma, and then it leaves a blank. This one, we don't have a trick. There's no like easy trick. It's what we did last time. It's exactly how we did it last time. We plugged in 0 for x. Anytime I saw x in the original equation, so right here, I'm going to plug in a 0. Okay. So that's going to look like this. Y equals, I'll make it a different color. I'll make 0 blue so it stands out a little bit. -3 parentheses 0 -2 -4, and then the squared part. Now, I know a lot of people say, wait, H, I thought H was +2. Yeah, but we don't change the original equation, okay? We don't change the original equation. We leave it the same. So even though H is +2, we still put that -2, okay? Don't change it. Order of operations. I'll show you an easy way to do it. Some of you actually were doing this yesterday, which is good. So that guy, I'm going to put into the calculator. Okay. So I had -3, parentheses, 0, -2, parentheses, squared. And then the last part was -4. And there you go, -16. -16. This is the Desmos calculator, but it's the exact same thing as the Delta Math calculator. I just used this one because I already had this one up. But the Delta Math calculator does the same thing. Okay, so just put that in there. You get -16. Let's go back to here. -16. Problem is I don't have -16 on my... If I go down -16, I go too far, right? So I'm going to have to kind of guesstimate. So let's see, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10, -11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So somewhere like around there. Oops. So my mirror line keeps going forever and ever and ever. Even if you finish drawing it, I'm going to continue it because it goes on forever and ever and ever. Well, if I have a blue dot there, I have to have a blue dot in the same position on the other side of the green line. That's why it's symmetry. So that's going to be right around there. Has to be the same. You were done. Okay. Arrows down. Well, we knew that to begin with because A was negative. This one looks a little skinny. Does that make sense that it would be a little bit skinny on the skinny side? Yeah, because we are farther away from 0, right? As we go farther away from 0 for A, it's going to get skinnier and skinnier. If we were to go back, it would get wider, but it's going to be a little bit skinny. Okay. All right, let's do the next one now. Let's do the next one. Number 2, right under it. Okay, so the first thing I got to do is, which form is it in? Well, on the notes, it's obvious because the left 2 are vertex, the right 2 are factored. On your assignment, on the practice assignment, or on the test, or on the quiz, it won't be. Okay? So again, it's got one parentheses and it's squared. So that means it's going to be vertex form. A is 1/4. H is a liar, so this time it's -5. K is +2. Okay. Now let me go to my list. My list says I need an axis of symmetry. According to my notes in the front or on the board, that has to be H, so -5. Grab my green line. Okay. Next is Vertex. Well, I got half of it already. Axis of symmetry is always half. K is positive 2. Left 5, up 2. Is that dot going to be a maximum or is it going to be a minimum? It's going to be on the bottom, right? Because 1/4 is positive. It's positive. So it's going to be a minimum at positive 2. Arrows are going to be going up. Last thing, the y-intercept. 0, comma, something. I'm going to plug in 0 into the original equation. See, don't worry that it's at f of x. A lot of you are saying, well, it's f of x. That just means it's a function. It's a fine. Just change it to y if it bugs you. Okay, it just means it's a function. It means when you put in a number, you get in a number out. That's all it means. So if I were to plug in a number for x, I would get something for y. That's all that means. Okay, so let me plug it in. So I have 1/4 parentheses 0 plus 5 squared plus 2. Especially when it's a fraction, don't even mess with it. Just go right to your calculator. Just go right to your calculator, put exactly that into your calculator. 1 divided by 4. 0 plus 5. Squared plus 2. 8 1/4. 8.25. A little over 8. Between 8 and 9. It's okay to get decimals. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Just like yesterday, you guys got some decimals. It's okay. So that means we're going to go left and right 0, up 8.5. 8.25, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a little bit more. So right about there. Well, it's got a mirror on the other side. So I got to figure out how far that blue dot is away from the mirror line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. Right there. This one wide, skinny, or somewhere in between? This one's wider. Because A was very, very close to 0. 1/4 is really, really close to 0. So the closer we are for A to 0, the wider it's going to be. Okay. All right. Okay, so now let's go to the other form. Factored form. Number 3. It's got 2 parentheses. So it's going to be factored form. So as an A, a P, and a K. Or Q, sorry. A is always in the front. So what is A going to be for this one? 1. -1. P and Q are not telling the truth. They're liars. So that means P is +1, Q is -5. Okay. Axis of symmetry. Since this one doesn't have an H and a K, I have to use other rules. Well, it said it's halfway between P and Q. So what is halfway between 1 and -5? Sometimes you can do it in your head. You can kind of see -1, positive, what's in between. If you can't, just add them together, divide by 2. Add them together, divide by 2. So 1 plus -5 divided by 2. -4 divided by 2, -2. That's where my green line is going to go. Okay. Vertex. Vertex, I'm going to do the same way I did yesterday and the day before. I already know half of it. I know -2 is going to go here. I just have to figure out the other guy. So yesterday I plugged it back in for x. I'm going to do the same thing today. Everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a -2. -1 parentheses, -2 -1, -2 plus 5. So put that in your calculator, just like that. -1 parentheses, -2 -1 parentheses, -2 plus 5. Do that right? Oops, so it'd be -1. -1. +9. So go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that red dot going to be a maximum or is it going to be a minimum? Is it going to be a minimum or maximum? Maximum. Good, because arrows are down. Yep. Max at 9. Last thing, y-intercept. How do you find a y-intercept? You always plug in 0. Anywhere there's an x, plug in 0. So I'm going to do the same thing I did for the vertex, except here I'm going to plug in 0, not -2. So -1 parentheses 0 minus 1 parentheses 0 plus 5. Go back to your calculator. I can use the same one because I'm plugging it into the same equation. Positive 5. Blue dot exactly the same spot on the other side. Done. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so what I want you to do now is number 4. I want you to do number 4 on your own. Number 4 right now. Okay? Do number 4 because number 4 is in factored form, just like number 3 was. We'll go over it together, but I want you to try it. Okay, so far I got A, P, and Q. Found the axis of symmetry was -7. Plugged it back into the vertex, -12. So that red dot that's just off the graph, that is going to be a minimum because A is positive. Okay. Last thing, y-intercept. Always starts with 0. Okay, so 3 times 0 plus 5 and 0 plus 9. When you do that math, you get 135. That's way off the graph. So we can't graph it because it's super high off the graph. But we can kind of visualize it. Okay, so if this is my graph here, I'm going to extend this guy here. 135 would probably be through the roof. 135 would probably go through that roof. So if that red dot had to connect with the blue dot on this line here, on the x-axis, is it going to be skinny, narrow, or narrow? Or sorry, skinny, narrow is the same thing. So narrow or wide? Very narrow, right? It's got to connect way up there. So that thing's going to be super skinny. So we're just going to sketch a skinny graph. Since it's not on our graph, we'll just do the best we can. Just a super skinny. And you're done. Yeah. Yes. I'm going to post them right now. Yeah. Okay, so one thing I want you to do, one more thing I want you to do, and we're done. I have an extra problem I want you to try. Let me get one here. So on page 11, I want you to do this on page 11 of your notes. This is going to be example 5. So I want you to find axis of symmetry. I want you to find the vertex, max or min, and the y-intercept. Okay, so on page 11, I'm going to pass out the tape right now. It's the last thing we're going to do. So you can tape it in your notes, and then just do this one on page 11. Okay, yep, and then we'll be done. Axis of symmetry, it's in vertex form, right? So the axis of symmetry, according to our notes, says H. H looks like positive 5. But remember, it's actually line, so it's actually negative 5. The vertex is H, comma, K. K tells the truth. There's the vertex. This one's going to have a negative 9. Yep, sorry. Yep, you're right. This one has A is negative, so it's going to have a maximum. Yep, max at negative 9. Y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0, comma something. So I'm going to plug in 0 everywhere I see an x. I only see it one spot. I'm going to plug that guy into the calculator. You don't have to put the equals or the y. Just put everything that we want to calculate. So negative 1 parentheses, 0 plus 5 parentheses squared, minus 9. Negative 34. Again, it would be off the graph, but we don't have to graph it, so we don't have to worry about it. We're done. Move this down a little bit. It's a little clustered there. Okay.